Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It is Wednesday, September 3rd, about 6:45 at night, and this is our daily recap video for our YieldMax Ultra Income Strategy Funds, ULTY, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, and SLTY, the Ultra Short Option Income Strategy Fund. A reminder, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1. Post everything related to ETFs and the videos and the distributions and the trades, everything like that. All right, before I go into the videos, I like to start with thank yous. So for some reason, I couldn't get it to pull up when I go to the video because it actually happened after the video ended. But big shout out and thank you to Brian. I'm going to butcher his last name. I don't know if it'd be Bequette or Bequette, so I apologize. But $19.99 super chat. So very generous of you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and take a look at how things went in the market. Big picture, Ulti was down 0.89%. Came back a penny in the after hours. Not that that's got any real impact. We got a decent mixture. Looks like a whole lot more red than green, obviously. And then when we scroll down, if it's a overall down day, that should work out well for SLTY, which it did. They were up about 0.5%. They do tend to run in the after hours, and take a look at that, up $1 above their inception price. So 51 in the after hours. They seem to go up every after hours. It's almost one you could start trading, see if you can make a profit that way. But surprising, there's a decent amount of green within the fund, but the ones that dropped helped go down enough to make SLTY go positive. We'll look a lot closer in just a minute. So after 5:30, you're able to go download the trades. So for this video, we have trades for Ulti starting at line 207, going to 259, so 52 trades, and then for SLTY from line 261 down to 320, so just under 60 trades there. We copy those and paste them into our spreadsheets, crunch the numbers, sort it all out, and then make the video to talk about it. It was declaration day today, so these got announced. I did make a video just to keep these videos shorter. So if you go back on the page, YieldMax, Group A, and weekly distribution declarations, put it out this morning. Try to get it out as early as possible once it gets released, so you don't have to wait till the end of the day to hear what your declarations are. But we will take a look at Ultis. They paid out 9 cents even. My guesstimate was 9.25 cents, so I was off by 2.78 cents. If you were in the live chat yesterday, I did say if I had the ability, not that I don't have the ability, it's my channel, I can do what I want, but it just doesn't feel right revising it. But I did say after listening to a Spaces talk yesterday that I would revise my number down to 9 flat, and I would have been dead on. But I'll take 2.78% off. Okay, as far as trades, we bought some more shares of Strategy, 70,000 more shares, so that means we're going to have 700 more contracts that we can trade. So spent $23 million on that. Next, all we did was adjusted our puts on App Lovin'. So bought the close 45s and sold, or 450s. Sorry, backwards. These are the protective puts. So we're selling the 425s, 435s, and 440s, moving them all up to protect us at 450. So that's going to cost you money, keeping it within the same week. We just locked in our price, $288,000 cost there. Webull, closing and rolling. We're starting to push things out the next week now. It's Wednesday, so out to the 12th. Adjusting, bringing the strike down closer to the money, bringing in $1.1 million credit. CoreWeave, again, we're closing our collar strategy for this week, selling it for next week, paying 54 cents and 34 cents, collecting 285 and 264. The put's going to cost us some money too, but if you notice, selling these puts brought in a nice chunk of money. Altogether, $4,600,000 credit. IonQ, closing a collar strategy, rolling it to next week, dropping the strike price by $1.50, bringing in a credit of $1.3 million. Strategy, this just is the 700 extra contracts to go with the new shares. So we're selling calls, buying puts, all for next week, collecting $254,000. Reddit, this was a partial close and roll. So there's more than 3,000 contracts at these strike prices. So just a portion got closed and rolled to next week, coming out to next week and up by a decent amount, $22.50. That's going to cost you $3.3 million. Rigetti, all we did was closed out our 17s and dropped them down to 1650, stayed within the same week, so that's a profit or a credit of $250,000. Rocket Lab closing this week, rolling the next week, dropping the strike by $4. It's a $1.4 million credit. The puts, the protective puts there actually brought in close to $1 million, so they paid for more than half of the new puts for next week. New Scale Power, this one hurt, so obviously they went up, but that's okay, right? So they went up. It cost us to close out these 3650s, rolling them to 42s and 44s for next week. Obviously our puts aren't worth much of anything if the stock goes up beyond our sold calls. So all in all, $14.5 million debit there. That one's going to ruin our day. And Upstart, closing our 73s and 76s for this week, selling 68s still for this week, and then selling 70s for next week. Again, puts brought in some money, $1.1 million, basically paid for the new protective puts. All in all, credit of $2.4 million. So on the day, it was actually a net negative on the trading. I don't want to call it profit and loss anymore because it really, you don't know whether it was a profit or loss until the trade ends. So credits and debits, or money in, money out. So we spent $6.5 million more than we brought in on the options trading. Okay, all the orange signified a full close and roll of all the contracts in a position, so they will correlate on this page as well. When we go through, Affirm Holdings was up 3.76%. Calls are sold at 87. They're still almost 2% out of the money, so we got to capture all of that increase. AppLovin up 1.17%. Calls are at 490, 495, and 505. 0.5, 1.5, and 3.6% out of the money on all of those, still expiring Friday. And we closed all these puts and brought them closer to the money, so we're locking in a higher protection on our shares. AST Space Mobile down 7.25%. That's not good for business, dropping our value by $12 million. We've got calls sold at $49.50, $50, and $51, $9.5, $10.5, and almost 13% out of the money now on those. Webull down 3.25%. We rolled the positions further out of the money. We still have 1450s in play this week that are 11.5% out of the money. Coinbase Global down 0.4%. They've got calls sold at $312.50 that are 3.3% out of the money. Credo Technology up 0.4%. No action taken here. 132s sold for this week are 5.8% out of the money. 130s for next week are they next week or 2 weeks? Next week are 4% out of the money. CoreWeave down 3.7%. They closed and rolled all positions to bring them closer to the money. And again, right, the puts were in the money, so they were going to have a whole lot more value than what it cost to pay to close out. We only got $37 million sitting in government funds. So let's take a look at our cash while we're at it. We've got $239 million in cash, so we're sitting on a decent chunk of money. Galaxy Digital, we don't own any shares, so 24.39 is where it ended. There's puts sold, put spreads, and they've got 24s and 24.50s. The 24s are now 1.6% out of the money, and the 24.50s are about 0.5% in the money. Robinhood down a fraction, 2 cents to be exact. 108s for this Friday are still 7% out of the money. IonQ got roughed up today, down 4.7%. If you watch my Saturday videos, you know this is my favorite to trade, so I did sell a put today. We've got 43.50s and 44s that are 6 and 7.4% out of the money. The furthest 45s got closed and rolled along with their puts. Strategy down 3.33%. They've got 350s and 360s sold for Friday that are 6 and 9% out of the money. Not sure if you guys can hear the background noise. I am at soccer practice. I tried to get as far away from everybody as possible, but wide open fields tend to carry noise, so hopefully that's not too distracting. Nebius Group is down 0.11%. They've got calls sold at 69 and 71 for Friday. They're 5 and 8% out of the money. Oklo was down 1.8%. Calls are sold at 75, 76, and 77, 3.8, 5.1, and 6.5% out of the money. Palantir Technology down 1.39%. They have $160 calls sold for Friday, 3.2% out of the money. Reddit up 1.37%. Of course, for all the ones to go up, it had to be one that was already in the money. So they're now 1.38% in the money on those 220s. The 227.50s are still about 2% out of the money. Rigetti Computing down 3.09%. They rolled the positions that are furthest out of the money. Yes, this was just the sold calls. They didn't adjust the puts with them. So they're going to actually have some value to them, obviously. And then the 1650 calls are still in play for this week, 9.7% out of the money. Rocket Lab, big loser today, down 11.7%. That one hurts a lot. They were flirting with 50. Now they're all the way down 43.50. They've got 48s and 48.50s still in play for this week, 10.2 and 11.4% out of the money. The 50s and the puts going along with them got closed and rolled. EchoStar down just over 2%. Still in the money on those 63s, 1.4%. 65s are still 1.7% out of the money. I shouldn't say still. They were in the money before today's drop, so that brought them back out. So that's going to greatly decrease the cost to close these out. All these prices of options were as of close yesterday. They don't update until much later tonight. SMCI down 1.67%. They've got 42s and 43s sold for Friday, 4.7 and 7.2% out of the money. NewScale Power, the big winner, up today by 8.5%. All the positions got closed and rolled because they blew past the strike. They were already in the money before the day started, so that one hurts a lot. Tesla up 1.4%, $345 calls, $345 calls, or 3.2% out of the money. Unity Software down 0.79%. They've got $40.50 and $43.50 calls sold, 3.5 and 11.25% out of the money. And finally, Upstart down 6.8%. Calls were closed and rolled, and a portion of the puts were, but not all of them. So all of those increases and decreases resulted in an overall drop in value of $54 million. That is why our share price dropped. At the start of today, we had $3.1 billion in assets under management. We did have a lot of people buy into the fund yesterday, almost 7.5 million new shares, bringing us up to 562,525,000 outstanding shares. So our NAV at the start of the day was 564. Obviously, we dropped a little. So that's everything we've got for Ulti. Next, we'll look at SLTY. We're going to try and get through them a lot quicker since they're such a small fund comparatively. So we'll start out by talking about the distribution. So they announced a 70.62 cents per share distribution that went in line decently with the IV estimate I came up with. Unfortunately, I did not go with that when I made my guesstimate. I took into account the fact that they had a week and a half's worth of trading before they made their first payment, and the fact that they were brand new. I thought they were going to try to make a splash, do something big, so I said 90. I was off by 27%, so I am not the crystal ball for sure. I should have stuck with my IV estimate, then I'd have missed it by 4.3 cents, and I would have been a lot closer. But okay, now SLTY, I'm not sure I really like the way we're doing this. So people's complaint on Ulti is I'm not taking into account the trades of the shares themselves, and the whole point was that they had lots of purchases and sales before I ever started. So since I caught SLTY right from the start, I've taken everything into account in the trading. But here's the problem. We're showing, if we account for everything in the trading, we're showing a $2.3 million net positive today. But if we look at it, 2.3 million of that came from the short selling of shares to start a position. So we're basically flat on the day, actually down by 15,000 when we look at all the options trading. But if we include, the problem is now every single time we put money to work, it's going to look like a winning trading day, even though it really shouldn't. And every time we close out of something, it's going to look like a losing day, and it's really going to throw off all of our numbers. So I'm not in love with it. I won't change it in the middle of this week, but I may switch this to be like Ulti and only count the options trading in that column. It's hard to say. All right, so what we did, we sold more, so kind of like buying more shares over in Ulti. We sold more shares of all these stocks, shares that we didn't have in the first place, so we're short selling. So that brings in money, and now we want them to go down before we buy them back to make the profit. A little bit of everything we already had, with the exception of, if you saw on the thumbnail, the little plus sign next to stock ticker AVGO, that's for Broadcom. So we just started shorting them as well, 1,500 shares, so that means 15 contracts. SLTY is going to trade very similarly to Ulti, just in the opposite direction. So they are going to sell puts out of the money to generate income and buy calls as their insurance or protection in the event the stock goes up. Because since we sold them first, we do not want them to go up. That would be bad for us. We need to own a call that would gain in value as our sold shares going up hurts us in value, just to offset that. So most of these trades are just more of the reverse collar to go along with the new shares. That being the case for Adobe and A-Lab. I think they're called Asterlab. That brought in $1,800 and $1,700. Applied Digital, along with selling more of the strategy, they also did a close and roll out to next week. So that actually cost us $22,000. So I believe they dropped too quickly. Let's see if that is correct. Yes. So they dropped beyond our strike price. That's why it cost so much to close out. Next, Broadcom, like we said, we just started the new position, brought in 5,600 selling options on that. Bloom Energy, Bitmine Immersion, and BitDeer, all just selling the reverse collar strategy to go with the new shares. $2,900, $1,700, and $1,400 credits. Circle Internet Group, this is a close and roll along with selling new options to go with the new shares. All in all, cost us $9,600. So again, they dropped beyond our sold put strike price. Enphase Energy, new reverse collar to go with the new shares, brought in $1,800. GitLab, close and roll, another one, dropped beyond our sold strike price. $7,700 debit to close that out and roll it. Lemonade, Lululemon, Mara Holdings, RH, and Tempest, all just more of the option strategy to go along with the new shares, collecting $800, $2,100, $500, $1,800, and $1,900. So like I said, big picture, it brought in $2.3 million, $2,378,000, but we know $2,393,000 of it came just from short selling these shares. So I don't know. We'll see if we got to change that. Okay, when we look at the underlyings themselves, this is going to act in reverse. If the stock went up, it's going to drop our value because we shorted them. We have negative shares. If the stock goes down, it's going to increase our value. So Adobe went up, that dropped our value. Puts are still 5.3% out of the money at $330, expiring next week. Astera Lab up 1.36%. These puts are still in play for this week. They're still 3.3% in the money even after the increase today. 182.50 is the strike price. Applied Digital down 5.77%, brought our value up nicely. Took our puts deep in the money. They were closed and rolled. Bloom Energy up 2.2%, dropped our value. Brought us back out of the money on these $52 puts expiring Friday by almost 1%. Bitmine Immersion went up the most here. It is green just because of that, but technically that hurts us the most percentage-wise. So it dropped our value by $20,000, and it did get us 4% out of the money on these sold $43 puts. So obviously they were in the money before today. BitDeer Technology down 6.88%. That's the biggest drop, so that's going to increase us nicely, $28,000, and we got to capture all of that because our puts still are out of the money by almost 2%. Circle Internet Group down 1.4%. We closed and rolled our positions that were deepest in the money. We still have puts sold at 125 that are 5.5% in the money. Enphase Energy up 0.27%. Puts at $36.50 expiring Friday are still 1.5% out of the money. We've got about $2.3 million in government funds and another 11 in cash, but we can't put that to work similar to the way we can put Ulti's cash to work because we have sold all these shares. We have negative shares. We have to be ready to buy to close them, so we need money available to buy and close those. It's really a backwards situation. When people put more money into the fund, they end up selling shares that they don't even have, which actually brings more money into the fund, but then they have to keep more back as ready to close things out. GitLab down 1.64%. They chose to close and roll those 47s when they were in the money by 0.19%. Lemonade down 3.7%. Got to capture all of that. 49.50s are still 0.72% out of the money with 2 trading days left. Lululemon down 0.84% today. $195 puts are 1.7% out of the money. Mara Holdings down a little over 1%. $15.50 puts are 2.5% out of the money. RH down about 0.25%. $220 puts are still 0.5% out of the money. And finally, Tempest AI down 2.6%. They've got puts sold at 72 that are 5.6% out of the money. So all of those mostly decreases resulted in a $61,000, almost $62,000 increase in value of SLTY. As we saw, there was more money that came into the fund, so 50,000 new shares. So that's the first large purchase we've seen really in about a week. So brought us up to 175,000 outstanding shares, and the net asset value of the fund is $8.5 million. All right, we did see we're going to be getting, that'll turn into a 70 cents on Friday when we get paid out. I say we, I do not own SLTY yet. I do own Ulti. I own pretty much everything I make videos on with the exception of SLTY so far, just because they're so new. All right, that's all I have for you. So thank you for watching. Thank you for all the support. Likes, shares, comments, everything like that. It means a lot. I do appreciate it. So the only thing left now is a dad joke of the day. So my therapist told me I have problems with verbalizing my emotions. Can't say I'm surprised. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good night and good luck trading tomorrow.